Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast at Dawn. Now, the world celebrated World Intellectual Property Day yesterday. Now, intellectual property refers to the creations of the mind, inventions, literary and artistic works, and symbols, names, images and designs used in commerce. To go home is to enter a place full of human ingenuity, from the objects and appliances we use in everyday life to the music and books that make us smile. These are the creations of the human mind that we are surrounded by intellectual property. Now, to discuss the state of intellectual property rights in Pakistan, we're joined by attorney at law Ali Kabir. Ali, thank you for joining us here on Breakfast at Dawn. Now, firstly, just for clarity's sake, in layman's term for our viewers here, what is intellectual property?
Like you said, intellectual property, I think, covers every aspect of human knowledge, human experience. In Pakistan primarily, and the world over, now it's expanded its field, but we primarily deal with three aspects of intellectual property. One is trademarks, the second is patents, the third is copyright. Copyright is creative, it's to do with artistic endeavors, and all sort of, we're talking about music and acting and scripts and books, like you mentioned. Trademarks and patents deal with more commercial rights. Patents are inventions, and there's a limited time in which they're protected. And trademarks deal with the any branding, etc., anything with which you brand your trade, and hence a trademark.
Right, so now we know the trademarks and patents, etc., have to be registered. So, what is the procedure of registering them, and what is their lifespan? But most importantly, how many people and companies actually take the extra step to do this?
Companies are actually, they've been very, very active in doing this, Pakistanis and international, and it's growing also because when your consumer base grows, you have more sort of, people like brands, they sort of really go for what they want to buy, and they start differentiating. When we were growing up, there was just dal, now there's National Ki Dal, or any certain brand, right? And that's the sort of difference that's happened over the last, say, 20 years. And therefore, registrations have really increased. The registration process is normally you have to go with they've recently established the Intellectual Property Office, and within that umbrella we have the Patent Office, the Trademark Office, and the Trademark Registry and the Copyright Office. You need to seek registrations for patents and trademarks. For copyrights, it's optional, but it's something we would recommend every artist to do, because of the fact that, when you want to enforce your rights, it's good to have that registration.
How many people enforce those rights? As of now, I mean, there are accusations that the present courts lack the expertise in dealing with intellectual property rights issues. So, when it comes to enforcement, what are the substantive laws that are actually protecting the consumers or the businesses?
True. The laws are all there. When you talk about substantive laws, the laws are very substantive and they're very clear. The key is to enforce them. When it comes to commercial rights, obviously companies, and especially big companies, are very particular about protecting them. When we see international companies and even really big local companies, they're very protective of their trademarks and their patents. When it comes to Pakistani companies, they haven't been. They really haven't been in the past. But again, a change is happening. We're talking about here, and we don't really have to delve into what intellectual property is, because there's greater awareness. Once we have that, I think it really changes the aspect, right?
So, but why is there this accusation that the courts lack the expertise to deal with the issue? Is it at the issue of the grassroots level? Is it at the issue of the judges level? Or does it come to the issue of the lawyers level as well?
Well, it's actually all of those things, all of the factors that you've mentioned. When we look at the lawyers, we have a lot of, in Pakistan, general practitioners. Now, a general practitioner, the problem with that is that they may know criminal law and they may know a bit of this, but when it comes to intellectual property law, it gets a bit complicated. When we're talking about patents, we're talking about pharmaceuticals, you're looking at 400 pages of chemistry. Now, when it comes to that, I mean, I see those cases and I'm just bewildered by what is going on.
So how many people actually give so much time to these cases?
Well, there are lawyers. I mean, there are 3 or 4 big firms that are dealing with pharmaceuticals, etc., and patents, and they have really built their capacity. Again, because what we're now seeing, especially in pharmaceutical sector, is that the local sector is also increasing. Hence, there's a sort of equal competition in legal terms. So even law firms have to build their capacity, and they're really doing so now.
Right now, there are incidents in Pakistan where we've seen you see department stores, you see restaurants that take names from, say, foreign foreign companies or, say from foreign department stores. How do you deal with incidents like that? I mean, isn't that a blatant violation of IP laws?
Absolutely, it absolutely is. Before 2001, when we incorporated the new laws, because we signed on to the TRIPS agreement as per the WTO, and with that came a new sort of provision which said that internationally famous brands have to be protected, even if they're not registered. So prior to that, you needed registration, but now if it's an internationally famous brand, we're talking about like say Gap or something of that nature.
I actually saw a Tesco supermarket sign on a very small department store, and I said, how is it possible that nobody is noticing this sign?
Of course. And that's again it, like, right, when we're talking about lawyers, because there's a paucity of good lawyers with sources, right?
Right.
I mean, and also, I mean, it's a limited field. Because of that, your focus is, very limited. And what we're finding is that when it comes to international companies or even local companies, they really need good sort of legal help, and they need good investigators to go in the market and really report back. Because Tesco probably doesn't know that, because if Tesco did,
obviously
they would
not. Right.
they would stop that. And if I'm not mistaken, Tesco's trademark is actually registered in Pakistan, because again, with big trademarks and big companies, they've been registering their trademarks for decades. It's implementation, and it's to do with good information. Now we do, I mean, one of the good things is that it's easier to correspond with our foreign clients now. Right? So hence you can report, okay, here's a photograph, I'll email it to you, and then they say take action. But because it's so pervasive that it's, we really have to work on it. One of the things that really sort of bothers me is that by naming it Tesco's, they're really not building their own brand.
Not at all.
And what's going to happen is in 5 years, when maybe Tesco enters the market, they're going to shut all of these down. So it's also on a very grassroots level. We have to inform people that it's actually good to have your own brand. You can grow with that brand. And that's something we really need to work on, maybe giving people the confidence in themselves as Pakistanis that, what, go with your name.
Right, we'll keep talking to you about this very interesting topic and create awareness about intellectual property rights as well. But time now to take you to the news studios for all your news updates at 9 o'clock. Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast at Dawn. We were in conversation with Ali Kabir, attorney at law on intellectual property rights. Now, before we continue our conversation, some sad news for Bollywood fans, as actor, director, producer Feroz Khan passed away in India yesterday after a prolonged battle with cancer. And now let's move on and continue our conversation with Ali Kabir. Now, Ali, just coming back to copyrights and coming back to the issue of piracy that plagues Pakistan. Now, due to widespread piracy, especially of copyrighted materials in Pakistan, Pakistan was placed on the special 301 watch list by the United States almost every year since 1989. Now, basically, any unfavorable findings under this special watch 301 can lead to withdrawal of trade benefits or imposition of duties on goods.
Sure.
So how does that affect Pakistan's stance in, say, the international trade community, for example?
Well, first and foremost, when it comes to the 301, it's very sort of arbitrary. It doesn't really look at the ground realities. One of the problems that we had when it came to piracy wasn't just the fact that we had rampant piracy, it was also that it was operating in a void, right? Because we didn't really have any legitimate people coming in with there weren't any sort of recording houses releasing CDs or DVDs. And when you have a void like that, obviously someone's going to enter. Or on the other hand, when you have sort of software companies and they're going to price their products at 8,000 rupees, and when you can get an alternative for 50 rupees, you can't have that big a variance. That's one of the biggest issues that we have to have as an industry. On the other hand, when it comes to really stopping it so that other people can come in, I think what's happened is that the IPO, which is the Intellectual Property Organization, they've been really working hard to build the capacity of the police and the FIA to take actions against infringes of copyright. And now what we're seeing is that there's greater awareness within these law enforcement agencies and a greater willingness to really do take some action and maybe stop them and seize them and, put some of these guys in jails. And what we saw a couple of years ago was that there were